Welcome to the November 24th Parks and Recreation meeting. We'll call to order now, and we'll start with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Here.
Commissioner Cribbs?
Here.
Commissioner Lemaire?
Here.
Commissioner Olson? Commissioner
Here.
Moss?
Here.
Commissioner Reckdahl?
Here.
Councilmember Koo?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. And do we have any members of the, if there are any members of the public who would like to speak to oral communications, we'll ask you to raise your hand in a moment, or go ahead and raise your hand now. This is if you want to speak to any item that is not on the agenda. Otherwise, do any commissioners have any requests for agenda changes?
You do have one person with their hand up.
We'll get to oral communications in a moment, David. Just checking to see if there's any agenda changes. And so let's then move on, please, to oral communications. Catherine.
Yes, thank you, Chair Greenfield. This is Lom here. First up, we have one speaker, Monica Williams. Monica, if you can identify yourself and your residence, and we will have 3 minutes to speak. And if you could begin speaking now, please. I apologize, Monica. You could unmute yourself. Okay, looks like you're unmuted. Please proceed.
All right, thank you. So shall I start again?
Yes, please.
All right. So good evening, Commissioners and Chair Greenfield. I'm Monica Engel Williams, President of the Palo Alto Pickleball Club. And on behalf of our club members, I'd like to give you an update on the pickleball courts that were opened at Mitchell Park just a year ago. Thank you all for the support that you provided. The pickleball courts are massively popular and have become a daily destination and an amazing gathering place for the whole community. We're proud to have been accepted into the City of Palo Alto co-sponsorship program for nonprofit organizations. To date, our total membership is 559 and 51% are Palo Alto residents. We reach out to teach youth and seniors through the City Recreation Department, the latest being a youth winter class starting in December, and our volunteers have offered team building sessions to city executives and staff. Our membership fees have enabled us to fund the installation of LED lights on the new pickleball courts and to also install a new gate to enable a safer flow of people during the COVID pandemic. We funded these upgrades by donating $10,000 to the Adopt a Park program. And since 2019, our club has provided balls, paddles, and portable nets for the community to use at a cost of over $9,000. We're very grateful for the pickleball courts because they're bringing much joy to so many people, but we do want to report 3 problems that would be easy to fix. The current pickleball lines on the multipurpose courts are very hard to see and are confusing for beginning players or seniors with vision problems. Painting the lines with a brighter color would solve this problem. 2, the current signs on the courts are out of date and very confusing to players because they state that 1¼ hours is allowed when a pickleball game takes only 15 to 20 minutes. The board would like to offer suggestions for more appropriate signs for the pickleball courts, ones that have been used successfully in other cities. The third problem is that evening pickleball has become extremely popular, especially by young players, but we only have the use of 6 courts after 3 p.m. because tennis players have priority use of the multipurpose courts from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. daily. We are in the process of collecting data of evening activity, and on average, we have about 40 pickleballers wanting to play, but the 6 courts can only accommodate 24 people. The board requests that pickleball be given priority for all the courts on at least 4 nights a week. These 3 suggestions will help improve pickleball play at Mitchell Park for the whole community. Please come out and play with us soon. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
No more speakers long.
That is correct.
Great, thank you. We'll now move on to the department report. Darren,
Good
please.
evening, Commissioners. Darren Anderson with Community Services. Thanks so much, Chair. In one of my previous department reports, I had mentioned that Jasmine LeBlanc had left the city. She moved on to a different job in Santa Barbara. And I want to let you know that we have submitted a request to fill her position. It's a vacant senior analyst position within Community Services. And that goes to a hiring freeze committee to review all positions right now. So I'm not certain it'll be approved, but I'll keep you in the loop as that one moves forward. I mentioned also, I think before in passing, that the city's in the process of updating our websites. Community Services is working on our pages. We don't have a date yet for beta testing or a go live date. It's taking a little longer than originally anticipated, probably the first couple months of the new year before we are ready to go live. We are starting to work on our capital plan reviews and submittals, and I'll be setting up a meeting with the CIP ad hoc, to discuss next steps and get commissioner input in December. A little update on the limited stay-at-home order that the state implemented from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. and the ways it's impacted the Parks Department. Rinkinada and Mitchell Park tennis courts will close at 9:30 p.m. They normally close at 10 p.m., but this is to allow enough time for folks to get home. And so the lights will shut off early. And same with the field rentals at Stanford Palo Alto Playing Fields and El Camino Park. They'll close at 9:30 p.m. and lights will shut off at that time. A JMZ update. John had shared some information I'd like to convey to you. That is that the construction is nearly complete with the punch list items underway. The facility was turned over to the city in August, with the majority of the operations having moved from Cubberley to the new facility. There are 179 new animals that have been acquired since July, including 27 birds, 2 mammals, 150 fish, with more scheduled through next spring. And all animals undergo veterinary health screenings at the new site and then are conditioned to their new home and routine. Interactive exhibits are being installed in the exhibit hall, and work is expected to be completed in January. Studios have been installed in the labs, science labs and classrooms, and are being used for in-school and at-home virtual science lessons. Regarding the opening date, we're evaluating the appropriate time to open the facility and taking into account the COVID-19. We'll update you as we know more on that one. I've got a couple updates on Foothills Park. The name change. So on November 2nd, Council had directed staff to pursue changing the name of Foothills Park to Foothills Nature Preserve and to follow the city's naming policy. The process is to submit the name change to the Palo Alto Historical Association and receive comment and evaluation, which I've done, and 13 of the 18 members have voted, so they should be wrapping up that process soon. They send an evaluation to me, and I'll put a staff report together, and it will come to the Parks and Recreation Commission for your evaluation, and then you'll make a recommendation to council. Regarding Foothills Park and opening to the general public, we understand there may be a referendum effort underway to nullify the city council approval to open the preserve to the general public. So it is possible that the opening won't occur on December 17th as originally planned. However, we're continuing with our efforts to prepare for the opening, be ready to make sure it's successful. During the council discussion on this topic, staff had mentioned several steps that we would take prior to opening. One of them was to install a real-time vehicle counter, which gives the rangers a little better technique to estimate how many people are in the park at any one time, as opposed to the total count for the day, which is how we have it right now. That we'd increased waste collection, and that we would do improvements to the parking. And those efforts are underway now. For opening day, we mentioned that we would have some support from Community Services Recreation special event staff. It looks like we'll have 2 hourly naturalists that have a little extra time, and we'll be using them in the beginning, that first couple days and the first few weekends as they're available to help fill in, give some extra support to the rangers, and that the community service officers from the police department would be able to help us too and help support the rangers. Additionally, the city managers pulled together a group of partnership groups, including Grassroots Ecology, Friends of Foothills Park, the Environmental Volunteers, professor representing Stanford University, and both our chair and vice chair from this commission to discuss ways of making the opening of Foothills Park positive and welcoming experience. And some of the ideas developed so far were suggestions from each group. For example, Grassroots Ecology is willing to help with environmental monitoring. In fact, they've already started some of the monitoring with the help of their college interns, which was really great. So they've monitored the first 200 feet of trails to get baseline information on invasive species that exist and see if it changes over time with increased visitation. They mentioned that they've got college and high school internship programs where a small group, approximately 10, learn about the restoration process. And they are thinking of adding a middle school program in the near future. This might be opportunities for some of our newer park visitors to join and get involved and learn about restoration. They're also planning a virtual naturalist talk on Foothills Park sometime in January. Another great way for people to learn more about the natural environment within Foothills Park, and will be offered both in English and Spanish. The Friends of Foothills Park, a long tenured environmental group that focuses on habitat restoration, are putting together a brochure on their stewardship program, which staff will promote, put in our kiosks and help distribute to make sure people can see it. And they'll be continuing their regular Sunday 9 a.m. meetings at Orchard Glen Picnic Area where they meet and discuss restoration plans. And they will welcome new visitors to learn and participate and join the Friends if they would like to learn more about their habitat restoration programs. The environmental volunteers, bear with me just a second. The environmental volunteers will provide a mobile interpretive tool called a Wonder Cart that will help allow people to learn more about the natural environment while being outside and socially distanced. They're going to do a monthly or quarterly, yet to be determined, nature program on some interesting feature of Foothills Park. And they'll create a site guide, which will be an online tool for people to learn more about the preserve and how to prepare themselves to come and enjoy it. And lastly, they've got a graphic designer who's working with city staff on a welcome banner for the entrance to the preserve. And I think one of the bigger outcomes that I really liked for our last discussion with this group was looking at the opening of Foothills Park as something spread out over 2021, opposed to just on December 17th, which is a thoughtful way of looking at it. I should also note that the ad hoc and I have met to discuss items that the council had asked the commission to work on. That includes the possible entry fee, visitor limit capacity, and other management and environmental studies. Need to meet again soon with the ad hoc, but we made some good progress in discussing some of those issues. And I think that would be coming to the full commission sometime soon. A little update on the Magical Bridge Playground. I'm just gonna really quickly recap the rules of the playground, just so any people from the public hear the consistent message. The playground's open Tuesday through Sunday, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So it is closed Mondays and holidays, and it will be closed this Thursday and Friday, both city holidays. The maximum capacity is 55 visitors with a limit to 30 minutes. Everyone 2 years and older who can wear a mask needs to wear one and maintain a 6 feet social distance between people from other households. And this is another important one. We don't allow food, beverage, toys, or cardboard boxes. We still have a lot of folks bringing cardboard boxes, which is a fun way to slide down the synthetic turf at one of the slide areas inside the park playground. And just a little bit on the stats so far. So we opened on November 17th, and we had 41 people for the day. And by Thursday, November 19th, we had 153 people. On Saturday, we had 336, and on Sunday, 413. So increasing in popularity, which is no surprise. We'll continue to monitor as the word gets out, perhaps the visitation increases. But we have other things that may affect visitation, of course, the weather being one, but I understand Redwood City would be opening their Magical Bridge sometime soon, which may share the load a little bit of people seeking a really inclusive playground like these. We do have a list of, I should note that on the weekends, they're the busier times, and we did reach capacity a few times. That is, we had a line of people waiting in, about of 10 to 12 people, and it didn't take long. They were cycling through fairly quickly, but it is important to note we reached capacity, and there is the potential of folks having to wait a little bit to get in. We talked a little bit earlier with an ad hoc about volunteers. So far, we haven't had volunteers yet, but we've got a list of folks who have completed the necessary fingerprinting, and we'll be scheduling them soon, most likely on weekends, to assist. Even without the volunteers, though, between staff and our contractors, we've managed the crowds well, and people self-manage once inside the playground fairly well. And that concludes the department report.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners regarding the department report? Okay, then we will move on to the business. Before we start, just taking into consideration where we are in the year, a couple quick comments. It's been a difficult year for everyone, to restate the obvious, but we have a lot to be thankful for, that we are here where we are. And I want to start by extending a big thank you to staff for all they've done through this difficult time. Your dedication is something we always knew was there, but it's really shown through in the past 8 or 9 months. And we thank you. I want to thank all the commissioners as well, and council members and our partners. The community is very appreciative of all these efforts that help give us some extra outlets and some things to do to have a few extra bright shining lights during these difficult times. And certainly our parks have been more well thought of than perhaps ever, and the understanding of the importance of the parks has really been emphasized and brought to the forefront. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. We have a lot to be thankful for. And now we'll move on to the first business item, which is approval of the minutes from our last meeting on October 27th. Does anyone have any comments or change requests regarding the minutes? And if not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. In a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And do we need to do a roll call vote for this, Catherine?
Yeah, we should.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. Commissioner Greenfield,
Aye.
Commissioner Cribbs,
Yes.
Commissioner Lemaire,
Yes.
Commissioner Olson, Commissioner Moss,
Yes.
Commissioner Rectal.
Yes.
We have 5.
Thank you.
Commissioner Olson, I don't know if you're unmuted or not, but we didn't hear your vote.
Oh, sorry. I have 2 places to unmute. I did say yes.
Okay.
Sorry
Oh.
about that.
Okay, 6 approved the minutes.
Perfect. Thank you. The minutes approved. And now the next item of business is the Rinkinada Park Interpretive Solar System update, something we're interested in hearing. And Darren, could you please introduce our speaker?
Thank you, Chair. My pleasure to introduce John Aiken. He's the director of the Junior Museum and Zoo. Thanks so much for being here tonight, John. Greatly appreciate it.
Oops, I too cannot unmute myself. There we go. Sorry. Good evening, commissioners. It's an honor to be here. Let me share my screen quickly. If I do this in the right sequence, I think we can figure it out. Here we go. View and full screen mode. Can everybody see the presentation?
No.
No. Uh-oh. Well, let's go back and try it again. I'm gonna go back. There we go. Share, view, full screen mode.
There we go.
There we go. Great. Much better. I'm here to speak about the solar system model that's planned as an interpretive element in Rinkinada Park. The installation is part of really the Rinkinada long-range master plan or long-range plan, which calls for exhibits and public art throughout the park. And we call this exhibit Voyage because we're actually looking at purchasing an exhibit from an already made exhibit here. I'll tell you a little bit more about it. It's called Voyage, in part because it was launched originally at the National Mall in Washington, D.C., when the Voyager spacecraft was collecting information and sending it back to the U.S. And it's a 1 to 10 billionth model of our solar system, spanning about 2,000 feet. It was first installed at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., or in the mall adjacent to the museum. And its production is managed by the National Center for Earth and Space Science Education and the Arthur C. Clarke Institute for Space Education. So I've got to say that those are great credentials. These people have got contacts to make sure that their facts are absolutely correct and that the model is accurate. There are prior installations, not just the one in Washington, D.C., but in Corpus Christi, Texas, Houston, Texas, and Kansas City. And then the JMZ, I'm sorry, in terms of budget, you guys are in my way. I have to move you out of my way. There we go. In terms of the budget, it's about a $60,000 investment. And that's because it's very well made. We are paying for it with a mix of funds from the Friends of the Junior Museum and Zoo, which have come up for $20,000 for it, and $40,000 from our exhibits budget, because we are trying to coincide this installation with the reopening of the Junior Museum. Voyage is an amazing model in the sense that because of its sense of scale, it really shows you how small we are. And so it celebrates what we know about Earth and space and our ability to know it. It reveals the true nature of the human existence, 6 billion souls occupying a tiny, fragile, beautiful world in vast space. It's an exhibition that speaks to all humanity. And I'm going to move you again. And it's a model that has, like all models, really develops a deep connection and understanding to our world in the context of the greater universe, this one anyway. As I was saying earlier, the elements are really well crafted, durable, and beautiful. It's made out of anodized aluminum, so things don't rust, and very durable graphic interface. And essentially, most of the models of the planets and various elements are 3D models that are a hologram inside crystals. So it has phenomenal details within it. It is a series of stanchions that run a linear line. And so we had to figure out exactly how we were going to install this. Plus, the producer is very picky about its accuracy. They will not let you install it unless you're absolutely accurate. And so they provided this overlay for us to look at maps of Rinkinada Park and find out within the orbits of each of the planets where they would coincide with pathways so we could create this linear line. Oops, I'm sorry. Just to kind of show you how particular they are about accuracy, here is a table they've provided that lists the model objects, the Sun through Neptune on the left. And really what the focus of our conversation here is the last column, the average distance in feet for the model, plus or minus. This is the error rate that you have to be, say for Earth, within 0.82 feet. In other words, like 10 inches of the distance from the sun. And so they're really trying for accuracy here. It's pretty amazing. So we've laid out preliminarily the inner solar system model here in this slide in Rinkinada Park. Let me tell you what you're looking at, because this is kind of an odd view right now. You're looking at the construction site for the Junior Museum a year ago. There aren't any updated satellite images that I could find that were any earlier than a year. And the museum roof is this gray roof here. This is the area where the zoo is located, and this is the wall that separates the zoo from Rinkinada Park. This area is the entrance to Rinkinada Park that will have a plaza, a circular plaza. The Girl Scout house is right here. In fact, you can see its brown roof kind of right there. And so right next to the Girl Scout, our promenade in front of the Junior Museum intersects with the entrance to the park. And we're planning on putting the sun right there and then clustering the planets nearby. This layout shows them in a sequence as you walk into the park, with the inner solar system all really within that playground area to the park entrance. But as you get to the outer solar system, you add quite a bit more distance to it. And so moving you out of the way again. So here's our inner solar system coming along here. And then and then you eventually get to Uranus, which is right outside the pool, then Neptune, which would be right outside the Rinkinada Library and across from the Arts Center. Pluto is, we're debating whether or not to include Pluto. Pluto is a subject of debate. It's no longer considered a planet. It's now a dwarf planet. But if we include Pluto, it'll be way out here by the composting area of the community garden, right at the parking lot. Oops. So what are our next steps? We will complete the layout, hopefully by December of 2020, as Peter is finalizing and bringing it into the improvement drawings for the park improvement drawings for the contractor that they're about to go out and rebid that project, I guess. The contractor that we will fabrication that we need to work with or through is the National Center for Earth and Space Science. They manage all of the fabrication, and we need to get into contract with them by January 21st or in January of 21. The footings will be installed by the improvement contractor under Peter's watchful eyes, likely in March of 21. And then exhibit installation will be done by the Junior Museum and Zoo's exhibit team likely in July of 21. And that's all I really have to present, but I'd love to entertain questions that anybody has.
Thank you very much, John. That was a really interesting presentation. It sounds like a really interesting project, and it sounds like it must have been a blast to work on. Would any commissioners have some questions? You can raise your hand, or I can call on you. Give everyone an opportunity to speak. Would anyone like to speak first? Commissioner Reckdahl.
Yes, I'm really excited about this. This looks like a very educational and also it's a piece of art. It's a piece of art that teaches something, which is always the best combination. You said these are very well made. What is the lifespan that we expect out of them?
These are typically exterior installations that are made out of these kinds of materials can last decades. And so I would expect 30 years is usually what we look at for this level of quality.
And of that 60,000 of the cost, how much of that is installation and how much of that is actually buying it?
Actually, 35,000 is actually all of the pieces. And then there's shipping, and we are doing some upgrades, or I should say 35 is the base price. You can buy this for a little bit less expensive with a little bit less quality materials. And we've chosen some of the upgrades to make sure that the quality is there. And so it's really the mix of the upgrades, the shipping and handling, and then our exhibits crew is doing the installation, so that's no cost. The hardware is in the main budget, and then the footings are part of the park improvement budget that Peter's managing, because those will go in with the contractor and the pathway installations.
And will each planet have a full explanation? So if you stumble on one, you know what it is?
Yeah, well, there's at the entrance. So over here by the sun, there'll be actually an introduction telling you that you are entering an exhibit. And then on the far side of Neptune, there'll be another introductory sign. And I believe the graphics do also have a line that shows you where you are in the sequence.
Okay, it'd be good, because especially if you're sitting at Neptune, it may not be obvious where Uranus and Saturn and Jupiter would be. Right? There's a lot of different ways to go between there and the sun. But I'm looking forward to this. Very good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Other commissioners like to have an opportunity for questions or comments? Commissioner Moss?
This is pretty amazing. I didn't believe it would fit, but it looks like you've shoehorned it in. And when I drove by there over the weekend, I couldn't see where the entrance to the park was going to be near the JMZ, and now I can see there's a little path, very small path between the parking lot and the park. So that's helpful. So it looks good. Looks good. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Olson?
I don't have any questions, but I'm very much looking forward to this as well. My kids are at the age where they just love the planets and exploring, so we would love to participate as soon as it's open. Thank you.
It's great. I might also mention that the original concept for a solar system model in the park came from the teaching staff at the Junior Museum and Zoo, because they wanted to be able to take classes out and show them in full scale, or excuse me, 10 billion scale, but a scale model of the solar system.
Great. Commissioner Lemaire?
Yeah, I think this is a very cool project, and thank you so much for spearheading this. With the installation, so first of all, I'm assuming this is a permanent exhibition. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and does it fall under any of the art covenants or anything that we've looked at with our parks planning in the past, where we've had to move something but it couldn't be moved because it was a art installation? Is there anything with that with this installation?
My understanding is that it's not public art. It's just an exhibit installation, and the way we treat exhibits in the open space preserves and in the Junior Museum is that they all have a life and eventually wear out and are replaced.
Okay.
Or not.
And in the porcelain enamel for the displays, I'm assuming that's long lasting. I sometimes see signage that fades quickly or fades away before the installation. And so I imagine that has the same lifespan as what we expect with the other parts of the installation.
It does. One of the big issues with outdoor graphics is fading over time. And so we can replace them if they do, but these have the same durability as freeway signs. It's the same process.
And then do we anticipate any of the placements of perhaps Jupiter or any of the other planets that would impact any of the usage of the grass field?
I don't think so. I think it's likely that Jupiter, depending on where Peter's got this path laid out, I think what we would like to do is have the sequence in line with each other enough that you can see to the next stanchion. And so I've drawn it here, but it may just curve in further and be tucked in over this way. It just needs to be within the orbit.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This is going to be great when this gets installed.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Cripps.
Oh, nothing, just to say thank you very much. I think it's really exciting, as do with the rest of the commissioners, and only leads to all the anticipation for the Junior Museum to be opening as well. So very fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I agree. This is very exciting and very interesting. Commissioner Lemaire touched on most of my question areas. I was kind of curious if public art funds could be used for this, and I understand there's a good reason not to use public art funds so that we have more control on the lifetime and replacement of the installation. The only question I have is, how will the fate of Pluto be decided?
I think we'll be talking with Peter and the museum staff about it. It was on our original plans, and I noticed lately a draft that I saw, it was gone, and so I didn't know how to deal with it for this presentation. I thought I'll just say it's in question. So we'll go back and take it to the committee, and we'll figure it out. I'd like to put it there because I think controversy is good. You know, we just have to make sure the graphics talk about it as an issue.
I agree. I think older generations tend to have a fond place in their hearts for Pluto, and it seems worthwhile for that discussion to continue with younger generations rather than allowing the concept to die out. Excellent stuff. It's really hard to visualize exactly what this project was when we're just hearing a short description, and this really puts it into color and gives it life, and can't wait to see it open up for the public to enjoy. Thank you very much.
I have one more quick question, and that is, as I look at this picture, are you going to be able to see, if you stand near Uranus, will you be able to see Neptune? If you stand near Neptune, will you be able to see Uranus?
That's a good question. When I've walked the site, I've looked through there, and it depends on kind of where you're standing and where they're located. So it's kind of iffy. One of our options was to look at putting Neptune way out here on the lawn.
Yeah.
The downside with that is it encourages people to do what is a not very safe crossing of the street here. Where this sidewalk is used much more, I think people will engage with it over here by the library and know that the rest of the exhibit is there. And so we're going to challenge ourselves to try and figure out a way to make this a visual connection if we can.
Yeah, maybe you make Neptune a little bit higher or Uranus a little bit higher so you can see over some obstacles, or at least point to where it is the next step in the path.
We'll do that. We'll probably have a little map too to show you how to get there.
Yeah, there's a lot of signage in the park already, and there's signage in terms of bike paths and where they go. It seems like we should be able to piggyback on that perhaps, but certainly want to be able to make it easy for people to connect the dots or the planets. Thank you very much, John. Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, then we will move on to our next item of business, which is our annual Aquatics program report. And I see that Tim Sheeper is here. And Darren, would you like to introduce our speakers, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my pleasure to introduce Sharon Eva, manager with Community Services Department, overseeing Aquatics, several other programs, and our contractor, Tim Sheeper, founder and owner of Palo Alto Swim and Sport. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you, Darren. So good evening, commissioners. I'm Sharon Eva, Community Services Manager, as Darren mentioned, and I am here joined with Tim Sheeper of Team Sheeper. And I'm sure you already know that Tim manages the aquatics program at Rinkinada Pool. I'll begin with introducing a few performance updates from the past year and share Team Sheeper's 2021 goals. Tim will then follow with a presentation that describes these updates and goals in more detail. So let me go ahead and try sharing my screen here. Just a second. Okay. How's that looking? Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. So, okay. So it was just 3 months into this year that we were hit with this pandemic, and unfortunately we're still living through it now. However, with the attentiveness of Tim and his staff, they were able to reactivate Rinkinada Pool immediately upon receiving clearance from the county. Since then, there has been 25,000 lap swim visits at the pool, of which 72% of those visits are Palo Alto residents, and 10,000 of those are seniors. 3,700 family swim visits, 210 summer campers that were registered in 3-week-long summer camp sessions, And also the Palo Alto Masters has grown to 41 swimmers. So this all occurred within this past calendar year, 2020. Some of their 2021 goals is to improve their reservation system. Another thing is to remain nimble, and the third one is to endure. So I'll now turn this presentation to Tim, who will go over the updates and goals I just mentioned in further detail. So let me go ahead and get his screen up here, or his slides. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, let me go ahead and share this. Okay.
All right, thank you, Sharon.
Yeah, of
And,
course.
good evening, commissioners. And I just have a few slides. I think there's 5 or 6. So we could just move on to the next one, Sharon. And in the report I put together, I went extensively into the community, the annual survey, and focused on what we really needed to work on and improve from the feedback that we received. So I just wanted to go through with this slide and just really paint a picture of how the community is feeling about swimming at the pool and being a part of the aquatic center. So this is the people who are satisfied and extremely satisfied or extremely satisfied with these programmings. And it was nice to see that 92% of the masters swimmers are really enjoying, what's going on, and in their first year in the transition from Rinkinada Masters to Palo Alto Masters. And it's due in part to just this great leadership that we have from this wonderful new coach that we have. And then 89% are feeling safe at the facility with the entry and exit procedures and just the way our staff is handling and the other people are using the pool. The 88% of the people are satisfied and extremely satisfied with the full lap swim experience. 85% with the way they're being lifeguarded and the whole lifeguarding situation at the pool. 82% are very pleased with the family swim experience that we were able to hold this summer, opening the play pool and cordoning off just a little bit of the of each leaf of the pool so we can put a family of 5 in the pool. And then 81% are very pleased with the level of communications that we have either on our website or our constant email broadcasts out to them. Okay, next slide. And as you know, Sharon mentioned, and as Jeff mentioned, that it is a collaboration, and there was a lot of communication, near constant communication, right prior to the shutdown and during the shutdown and prior to reactivation. And a lot of planning went on with city staff, and a lot of pieces were put together quickly so that we could transition smoothly so that the community could benefit right away without any stalls or hurdles or hiccups. Next slide. And I put so much information about the lap swimming in the reports. I just wanted to give you a little snapshot of what I think is important about the lap swimming. So 91% of the lanes are filled all the time. 72% of the people swimming at lap swim are residents. 34% are seniors. There's 290 people who are monthly members. And if the cost breakdown, because we limit people to 4 swims per week, so it breaks out to a regular adult swim would be $4.31 a swim, or $3.68 for a senior swimmer. And next slide. And just to give you an idea of the volume and what's going in and out of the pool on a daily average, and this is just average numbers. Of course, there's going to be some days that are bigger. And this is the combination of lap swimmers and open swimmers, master swimmers, and the youth swim teams. So it's about 255 swimmers on a daily basis coming in and out. And you have to remember that's just one person per lane. So the pool is open. It's being heavily utilized as far as from 6 a.m. to well into the night. Next slide. And looking forward to 2021, we've struggled as a company, as a provider, with our registration system. It's basically our reservation system, because we've had this registration system where we've never used the reservation part of it, and even the provider, the platform, it wasn't used this heavily before, so we kind of had to modify it quickly to make it happen. And there was just some hurdles along the way. So we are really pleased that we are quite a ways down the road of just replacing the whole business system, which includes the reservation system. And so we'll be able to change the release times of when people can make their reservations, because currently it opens up at midnight every night, and we can't change that. And so the target date is by February 1st, just to install a whole new program. And it's been a massive undertaking. And it takes several months to switch systems. And then we just hope to just pretty much continue operating as we're operating right now, and just having that nimble part. So whatever changes with our community and our country, just being able to scale up, scale back, or stay in place as quickly and as safely as we can. Next slide. Well, that's it. And so I just, happy to field any and all questions at this point.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Tim. Appreciate the update, and thank you again for your perseverance through these very challenging times, and really reinventing some wheels, it sounds like. And as our aquatics liaison and our swim champion, would you like to start?
Oh, I'd love to. I just have a couple of notes that I made, but first of all, I want to say congratulations, Tim, to you and your your team, and Sharon as well, what I hear from people who just happen to say something to me about swimming is that your staff has been incredible in this time of COVID, incredibly welcoming and responsive and very respectful of the community and patrons, and telling people what they have to do and what they couldn't do and where they could go and all of that. And that's not easy. So that's really kudos to you and the management. So just hear a lot about good customer service. I think the people are going to be delighted to hear about the reservation system and not having to set your alarm at 12 o'clock in the nighttime to get a lap in the pool the next day. So I think that's going to be great. In terms of water usage, it looks to me like you're using as much of the water as you can, as many times of the day as you can, and everything is really being utilized in terms of the protocol that the county's putting on you and that kind of thing. Do you feel like that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I mean, so if somebody said, Tim, could you use a bigger pool or more pools or another pool in South Palo Alto, you'd probably say what?
Right now at this time, we wouldn't have the staff. I mean, we're so lean on our staff, right?
And that was good. That was going to be my next question. How are you doing with the staff? Is it getting hard to find people, or?
We are we're right at the exact level that we need to be at. So there's no wiggle room. Right. So
I'm sorry there's no wiggle room, but that's good news that you're right, right where you want to go.
Yes.
In the past, there's been comments about the locker rooms. And I know that we've all tried to upgrade those a little bit, but how are the locker rooms with all of the people and the protocols and all of that? How's that going?
They're not being used. They're not in use.
Oh, that's right. You can't go to the locker room, right? You're not using the showers either, correct?
Right. Yep.
So maybe if we could take just 1 minute, Tim, can you go through the protocol so people can understand kind of the challenges? I'm not so sure all the commissioners who don't have, maybe a swimming background. So I'm a community member, come to the pool, and what do I have to do?
Well, first of all, you have to make a reservation to come to the pool. You just can't walk up. And so you could make a reservation on a drop-in basis, or you could sign up as a monthly member to get more of a discounted entry. And then you have to sign up 7 days in advance. It opens up 7 days in advance, and you pick your day and your time. And then you arrive at the pool at your day and your time, a few minutes right before. Then you line up in a queue that's 6 feet apart, and there's 14 spots. And then you pass by the lifeguard, and he does he checks your name and asks you, are you experiencing any illness, or, so he does a quick little verbal check. And then you walk into the pool, 7 people on one side of the pool, 7 people on the other side of the pool. So everything is staggered. There's only 1 person per lane. These are 45-minute cycles. So if the cycle before you gets out quickly, you could swim anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes. But in that 45-minute cycle, there's a few minutes to get into the pool and a few minutes to get out of the pool. So you're assured 35-minute swim, but possibly a little bit more. And then you come in one gate and you leave and you exit the pool at a different gate. Once the whistle is blown, or most people are watching the clock and they know when their cycle is over. And then you just keep repeating that process. That there's 13, 14 cycles a day, and just 1 person per lane, and it just continues day after day.
So yeah, so it is a really big deal, and a lot more than just providing lifeguarding, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And then the other thing that I do remember now is that there's no standing around on the deck and enjoying the sunshine, although Yeah, just in and out, and come to the pool in your swimsuit and be ready to go.
You have
Correct?
to have your mask on anytime you're on the pool deck, except when you're in the water.
Okay, so one other question about entering the pool. For people who can't dive into the pool, like in the deep end and that kind of thing, can they enter the pool and then go under the lane lines to get to their lane?
They're entering right just from the edge of the pool. And if they need, if they're challenged getting into the pool, they let the lifeguard know at the time of entry when they're checking in, and the lifeguard either assists or switches lanes with another person so that they can use the ladder to get in.
I got it. Okay, thank you. Are you having swimming meets right now?
No,
Not at all.
no, there's no
But
swimming.
But Palo Alto Swim Club or PASC is still swimming, right? Doing workouts?
They're swimming the same way lap swimmers are swimming. It's still just one person per lane, and they have to do reservation because we have to keep record for any contract tracing.
Sure.
So we have to know exactly who's in the pool at what time.
So we're all worried about kids not getting exercise in this time. And so I just wanted to make sure that Palo Alto was swimming. And then the last compliment I have is about the family swim. I think it's great that we've been able to figure out letting the families come in 5 at a time or 4 at a time and have them swim in kind of pods together, however you do it. So that's great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we were pleased to do that.
Well, thanks for letting me take so much time, everybody, but I think this is really important and I really appreciate the reports. So thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Thank you, and appreciate your deep dive there. Would other commissioners like to speak? Any hands up? Anybody like to speak first? Jeff?
Yeah, Tim, thank you so much. I think any of the facilities that we can have open and used by our city for recreation is outstanding. Does anything change for you depending on what tier we are in for our county? Like if we're in orange tier, does that impact how many people we have in the pool or anything like that versus purple?
Not really, because when we moved up to the orange tier, there's the mandate that we're still following is that the swimmers have to be 6 feet apart in and out of the water. So there's been a lot of debate and a lot of clubs and private clubs are really skirting the rules by putting 2 or more people per lane. But we just haven't been able to figure out how to keep people 6 feet apart if there's 2 in a lane, and that's going to disturb people who want to be 6 feet apart but they can't. So we're just staying, no matter what tier, just 1 person per lane until things majorly change.
Okay. I saw that there's 41 master swimmers. Is that correct? How do those numbers compare historically to what master swimming had been in the previous 4 or 5 years? I don't know if you know those numbers, but how is
those numbers
of master swimming?
Those numbers weren't available to us and they were not shared with us. So I don't know how to compare them, but I do know the numbers when they were Rinkinada Masters at its height was close to 200 swimmers in its heyday. So I don't know what it was last year or the previous years. So it would just, it's growing, and it's nice to see that it's growing. And we only have very few workouts, and 35-minute workouts at that.
And then this, I also saw that the PASA was using 26.5 hours per week, and the masters were using they were using 9.5.
Yeah.
this summer. Why did such a big difference when the previous year the Masters were at 17 and also PASA was at 17?
Yeah, it comes down to numbers. As far as there's 41 Masters swimmers, and PASA was optimizing lane space at a maximum. Their team is close to 200 members, and they would normally have 5 to 8 swimmers per lane. So he just has a lot of swimmers to run through the pool. So since we can't condense them, we just had to extend the amount of time. And so he just went later into the evening. He used to finish at like 7 o'clock. And so now he's finishing at 8:15. And so that cut into the lap swim time that we're able to put at night, but we ended up putting Masters swimming from 8:15 to 9:15 because now people are willing to do that just to be able to get into the pool.
And then I saw that non-residents, there was an uptick in non-resident use.
Yeah.
30% non-resident use, 70% resident use, which was a drop from residents. You had some notes in there about, perhaps it being that our pool is available to use, and maybe some other neighborhoods or communities were not. Were there any other thoughts? Could it be the fact that the pricing or anything like that? Was there any other thoughts besides that for the difference in use?
It's all theory, but one of the big things is that Stanford was a highly used pool for lap swimming and master swimming. They have big programs, and it's a few miles. I don't even know if it's a few miles. It's just down the road, and they haven't opened to the public yet.
Oh.
So it's just for students and varsity swimmers, and so I'm sure we're getting a lot of those swimmers coming down to Rinkinada to use the pool, and I don't think it really deals or has anything to do with price, because looking at the prices in the market, before we did our price and we looked what other people were charging, and it's right in it's in the range.
And I guess I would look forward to, I saw in the notes that when your new reservation system comes online, you'll be able to tier the pricing. And I think it's important that residents have a little bit of a cheaper price than non-residents. I think that's an important feature for a community pool.
Oh, agreed. And we've always had that, but the way this system is, it could only take one price, and we could put resident, non-resident, but who's going to pay the non-resident? We have no way of checking.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would look forward to that. And then my last question is your Beyond Barriers swimming program that you help out underprivileged swimmers. How is that advertised, or how are you able to access swimmers or even increase the number of swimmers that you would be serving in that program?
Yeah. It is through, we put the information on the website, and I think this year it would have grown a lot from last year, because the program has been around for 5, 6, 7 years, and we're doing dozens and dozens, more than dozens. We're doing hundreds and hundreds of lessons in Menlo Park, both at Bellhaven and Burgess Pool. It just hasn't been adopted in Palo Alto, and I think it will take off, but we need to be able to do group lessons.
Yeah.
We need to have a more robust and vibrant swim lesson program. I think it will take hold, because it really is taken off by word of mouth in Menlo Park, and especially Bellhaven. The advertising for it is almost non-existent. Beyond Barriers doesn't do any advertising for it, and it's all about our swim instructors and our swim staff letting people know that it's available.
Great. Well, thank you so much for
Sure.
what you do with the pool. It's such a great community resource, and appreciate your efforts, especially during this uncertain time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moss.
Yeah, this is really amazing. Your goal of being nimble. It's unbelievable how you've had to adjust, and the fact that you are using the pool to the max, well, 91%, is fantastic considering all that you have to go through. And going back to Commissioner Lemaire's question about the 200 members in the past versus the 41 members now, I could see that there's a lot of people who may not want to be in the pool during COVID at all because of fears of safety. And it sounds like you're doing a fantastic job as far as keeping people safe, but also the fact that you can only have one person per lane is really, really limiting. And I would think that a lot of people would not want to go through all the effort of signing up 7 days in advance for a 30-minute workout. So I assume that you're going to get more people back into the Masters swim once things settle down. But tell me about the new coach. It sounds like the new coach is, I mean, they had a fantastic dynamic coach before for 50 years or 40 years. Tell me about the new coach.
Yes, the new coach is Steve Hirco. He is a triplet, and he has all three of them are swimmers, and they grew up swimming, and they ended up swimming at a high level for Santa Clara Swim Club, and he went on to swim on the Cal Poly San Luis Obispo team, and then he graduated and went into finance, and then decided that that was not what he wanted to do. That wasn't where his passion was, and so he came back to aquatics. He was in he worked at YMCA's, and he worked at another private club, and we just recruited him, and he's been with us now for nearly a year.
What I really wanted to know is how is his rapport with the people?
He lives, eats, and breathes swimming, and he loves people. He's very personable, and he's young and energetic. He's under 30 years old.
All right. One other thing I noticed is that you've had to significantly reduce the number of employees in order to endure. That was your other goal. And I'm wondering what happened to them, and is it mainly because there's no group lessons and things like that?
Yes, you could see that we without lessons, group lessons, and without open swim, where we would have a lot of lifeguards. So we would need on a weekend, we need about 10 lifeguards just to guard the play pool and everything. And so now we could do it on a skeleton staff and be very safe on the skeleton staff. And so
yeah,
it's that, you know, high-level employees or high-level managers are doing a lot of basic work too, just to keep their positions and keep our company going.
Yeah. All right, that's all I had. This is just amazing what you've had to go through, and I hope we can see a light at the end of the tunnel middle of next year.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Keith?
Very good. I was glad to see the satisfaction ratings were high, especially for the masters. That was in the past been a sore point. So I'm glad to see things are improving. Looking through, there are a lot of complaints about the reservation system. So it looks like we hopefully will address that with the new reservation system. There are also some complaints about price, about like the swim lesson prices. Only about 40% of the people were satisfied with swim lesson prices. Can you talk about that?
Yes, swim lesson prices. So there are 3 types of swim lessons. There's a group swim lesson, which is 3 or 4 per instructor. There's a semi-private, which is 2 people per instructor. And then there's a private lesson, which is only 1 person per instructor. And when it's a group lesson, the lessons are about $20 per 30-minute lesson. And so the end user is paying $20. Now, all we can do to stay within the mandates, within the guidelines, is do private lessons. So the only way you can get a swim lesson is if you pay the private lesson price. And so the private lesson price is, you know, it's out of a lot of people's range. And so they weren't able to take swim lessons unless they went through BBAF. And even then, you know, they would have to be under a certain range, income range to even qualify for BBF. So it's really taken a lot of kids out of the water and learning how to swim this summer.
So you think the people in the survey that were unhappy were people who were used to group lessons and now they're doing individual lessons?
Correct. That's the only option they have. That's the only option we have. And
Yeah.
even these private lessons, now we have to keep the instructor on the pool deck behind a mask. And so you cannot be a learn to swimmer. You have to be, you know, somebody who's safe in the water even.
Oh, that's hard.
To be able
Yes.
to take a swim lesson. So it's, yeah.
So you said that it's $20 for 30 minutes. Was that the same price as last year for the private lesson?
That's a group lesson.
Oh,
right.
What is the private lesson right now for?
It's $76 for a half lesson.
For a half hour.
For a private lesson for a half hour. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And that's what it's been, and that's what it's been for years and years.
Okay. That's unfortunate.
Definitely.
How does that compare to other cities like Sunnyvale and Mountain View? Their lessons, are they in the same price as ours?
They're probably not even given swim lessons. There's a lot of pools who just didn't even didn't have swim lessons through this pandemic. Just pretty much took that right off the table.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a rarity that we're even able to do it.
Tim,
Yep.
Keith, if I could jump in here for a second. I think this is all just the swim lesson situation right now is just a result of the pandemic and availability of water time, and the fact that you really cannot teach a child who is unsafe in the water without being in the water without him or her. You have to be in the water to teach a little kid or even an adult how to swim who doesn't know how to swim and who has any kind of a fear at all. So maybe we shouldn't worry too much about all of this until we get back full field with a vaccine and everything. And then I would like to suggest that the commission really think about how to make up the time that kids lost because they've been out of the water, and make sure that we can offer as many swimming lessons as possible through group swimming and all of that, to make sure that kids are not missing the opportunity to learn to swim. But and I do think, from what I know about the pricing, this private lesson business is can be much more than that, and in private clubs. So I think it's just a COVID thing right now. I don't know, Tim, whether you have anything else about that to say?
I think you summed it up pretty well. It's not optimum for the community, but for the entire community, but we are proud just to be able to do that, and to get an instructor who is willing to teach from the pool deck behind a mask. It's very, very difficult, and it's hard to connect to a student and really make a difference.
Yeah, I would say that it's really hard as an instructor to connect with a child or an adult, to help them if you can't be with them in the water. And it's incredibly frustrating because you so want the child to do well, and you can't, it hardly ever works.
Yeah.
No, I agree. As long as you're a verbal learner, it's yeah.
I'm not beating up Tim because the price is too high. We've lost the group lessons, and that's certainly a change the situation. But in general, we always want to see what are we charging people and how do our rates compare. And that's the same thing if you're talking about golf, you're talking about aquatics, you're talking about children's theater. We want to say, what are we charging the right amount? And a good way to look at that is say, what are other people charging? And so when we talked about this last with Jasmine, she had promised to put in the report a comparison chart of both swim lessons and also for lap swimming. And that's not in the chart not in the report this year. So we'd like to see that next year, just a comparison of costs, and just to say, where do we rank compared? So Sharon, can you take an action to include that in next year's report? That's just a generic piece of information we really need to have.
Definitely.
And then finally, the other thing that stood out to me was when I looked through the survey on page 24, they talked about, how do you hear about us? And it was almost all word of mouth or other. What outreach do we do, Sharon, so people know how to get swimming lessons and how to get lap swim?
Sorry, mute there. Well, we do have a webpage, and as well as our catalog. Well, it's a virtual catalog now that promotes our aquatics programming. And then also too, I know that like Team Sheeper and their staff also promote it through like email blasts and their own marketing. Tim, do you have any more detail on how you guys also promote this?
Yeah, there's no information on the other. It just said other. We didn't have a field that filled that in.
Okay, in the survey it says other, please specify, but we have no data for that.
We have no data for that.
Okay, so that's a little misleading, the fact that it says please specify then.
Yeah, I don't have that data. There's nothing.
Okay, that would have been good to know, because that was half the people right there had other, and we have to know and that wasn't word of mouth, so they're learning about it somehow. So how does the outreach this is a question for Sharon, how does the outreach for the pool use compared to other recreation programs?
Whoops, sorry, I'm unmuting. So basically, for other programs like within Community Services Department, we actually try to utilize as much as what we have for marketing with those to also promote the aquatics program. So like I said, like when we have our catalogs or we have our social media, anything that Team Sheeper offers, we will try to promote that as well. So, you know, we really just want to make sure that like the programs, their camps, their swim lessons, like even when it's time for family open swim, like if they are having that, then we'll make sure to try to promote that as well.
Okay. I mean, right now it's kind of a moot point because our lanes are full.
Yeah.
But going forward, there's gonna be a time when the lanes aren't full, and we really need to make sure that we're doing, especially the low cost methods of through Enjoy and other places like that, make sure that we're fully using all the
Yeah, definitely. And also too, like we have banner spaces, even stuff like that, where we can create banners for them. So we can say, okay, like the pool's going to be opening or summer camps are going to be starting for aquatics, but we really make sure that we include their programs within our marketing as well. So, you know, it will get the word out to the community.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Keith, if I could just add to that and make a comment on that. You're talking about filling the lanes. Well, if we're talking the performance pool with lap swim masters and PASA using the pool is highly utilized, whether it's pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, or even now, it's highly utilized. And if we're talking the play pool, it's heavily utilized during the summertime with family swim, open swim, and camps. So you brought up lessons. And so historically, there has not been a big push of lessons in Palo Alto, at least in the past 20 years, you know, that I've been watching Palo Alto. So we are transitioning to introducing more in-depth and more year-round lessons. So we are in the infancy of, if you will, of putting in a full lesson program there. And what stands in our way is it is very difficult to run lessons in that play pool because there's not a lot of space to utilize to run a good proper swim school. And using the performance pool or the big pool, it's really tough on that pool because it's already heavily utilized from lap masters and PASA. So it is a puzzle. It's still trying to work all these programming pieces together. And so I don't think it's a matter of bringing more people in or not, you know, people not knowing about our lesson program. And it's just making things work. I don't know if that cleared up anything.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is you want the lanes full, but you also we're doing a community service, and you want to make sure people in the community know about the services that we're offering. So I think we certainly, even if the lanes are fairly full, you want still to do the outreach.
Oh, agreed. I mean, that's the name of the game. Yeah, the outreach. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson.
Tim and Sharon, thank you so much for all of your efforts. I'm really glad that Commissioner Moss referred back to your goals because I thought, you know, I think I could adopt your last two goals and see if I can continue to be nimble and endure through this. But it's really impressive the amount of ability you've had to sort of pivot and do different things. And I will say, I'm only one data point, but I have taken my boys to lessons at Rinkinada Pool in your programs and to a private place as well. And when the pandemic hit, you know, of the two, you all opened much sooner than the other pool. And so I do know that, you know, I only have a very limited amount of data I'm looking at, but I was very impressed with how quickly you were able to get people outside and active again. And I think it's so important for not just our children. I know their access is more limited right now, but seniors in particular. It's such a great outlet. And if that's something that you've been doing, you know, a lot of years, and that's the thing that you do to get exercise, it's so important to make that available. So I do appreciate those efforts and your report. And I hope you keep on keeping on and endure, and we'll all get through it together. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jackie.
Tim and Sharon, again, thank you for all of your efforts on this. Other commissioners have said things very eloquently, how much we appreciate what you've been able to do for our community during these challenging times. I do have a couple questions. That you were previously talking about the Beyond Borders program at Bellhaven and Menlo Park. Did I understand correctly that the enrollment numbers in terms of the number of lessons that you've provided at those two pools through Beyond Borders is a lot more than we've had it in Palo Alto? I can see there were only five unique swimmers that we had. So it's much more popular, and people are signing up for the lessons more through word of mouth at the other pools.
Yes, yes, they are. And it's been around at the other pools for a lot longer, right? So we have a 5-year head start on where we were. And the numbers that we're at in the Menlo Park sites are, you know, extremely low as compared to what they've previously been as well. So it's almost like families have just really stopped thinking about putting their kids into swim lessons. It's just not on their radar. And so I imagine it will go up, you know, the next year, or when we're able to do full group and full service lessons.
No, I appreciate that. It makes a lot of sense. And it also kind of ties into the data question, your survey question regarding feeling safe at the pools. It's kind of a self-selecting group. The people who feel safe at the pools are the people who are going to show up. And the people who don't feel safe at the pools aren't going to be there. And that totally makes sense. Is there any provision for family members to share a lane, or for family members to share a lesson?
That gets back to the one person per lane. You have to keep people 6 feet apart. So there is, we've struggled with this one, and we've debated it so many different times, is that yes, we can put two family members in a single lane, but then that puts the people on either side of the lanes at risk, because they can't be 6 feet apart. So it affects other people. And so the same was for the lessons.
Can you explain that conflict of 6 feet? I'm not quite getting it, not quite visualizing it.
Okay, so lanes are 8 feet wide, right? And then people swim down the middle of the pool on the black line. And so it's more than 6 feet from black line to black line. But if you put two people in, they split the pool. So they're on one side, they're swimming really close to the lane line. So each person is swimming close to the lane line, which is then a mere 3 or 4 feet from the other person. Gotcha. So it just condenses the space between swimmers.
And all of the lessons are using the lanes as well? Are there any lessons using the small pool?
They were using some lanes, but it was in the they were using the play pool as well. But what ends up happening is the play pool is mainly used for learn to swim people. It's kids who don't know how to swim, so they could touch the bottom. And since we our instructors could only be on the deck. We only could have people who could swim to take lessons. So we could only do one, because if we put 2 kids in, or if they were siblings, that would affect the person next to them in the lane. And because there would be 2 swimmers in a lane, and we were getting feedback from swimmers, because we initially started that and put siblings together for lessons, and there was a lot of fear, and we got feedback from lap swimmers, and so we just re-evaluated, and then we halted that within the first 2 weeks.
Thank you. That makes sense. I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah.
I do echo Keith's request for cost comparison data to help provide better perspective to help us understand.
I have all that. Yeah, I have all that. It wasn't in the list and the yeah. So we'll get it.
Not that your report didn't have enough pages in it. Very extensive.
But there always seems to be something that I thought, okay, it'll be 120 pages then.
But again, I appreciate that this has not been an easy path for you to come into our community and achieve the success in terms of the satisfaction of our community. This is there are some high bars here to hit, and I think you're going through you're swimming through the hoops. Appreciate the effort, and
thank you.
Look forward to the continuing relationship, and thank you for what you're providing our community. Does anyone have any follow-up questions? Final comments? Councilmember Koo, do you have any comments?
No, except just thank you so much to Mr. Schiefer, as well as to Sharon, for all the work that you're doing here. I was going to ask a question with regards to what Chair Greenfield had asked about family members sharing a lane, especially for people with disabilities, or so I'm thinking that perhaps, since you cannot share a lane even between family members, so that question kind of got answered. So thank you.
Okay.
And actually, thank you. And that raises another question related to the family sharing a lesson. Would it be possible to have any kind of a parent and child group lesson together, or the parent assisting the younger student who's learning to swim, or is that a safety issue since the instructors can't be in the pool with them? And I'm talking about having a lesson done in the small
yeah
pool.
And I believe there was some of that done in the play pool when there was a parent in, and there was a little bit of that going on. That was a small portion of what happened this summer in the play pool. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was allowed, and that did happen, but at a very small level.
I have one more question, and that is that the COVID issue is getting worse, not better. And I hope it's going to, start ramping back down. But have you had any COVID incidences that you've had to do that contact tracing so far? And what would you have? What does the county require you to do if someone tested positive or something?
Yeah, touch wood, we haven't had any incidents right now, and so we would just have to, if somebody was traced back to the pool, we'd have to submit all of our records of time and place and who was around them, and that's why we keep our daily records. We get them from Paso. We have them in our reservation system, and we could turn them over right away.
Wow. Okay, thanks.
Interesting. Thank you. Any other commissioners? Thank you again, Sharon and Tim, and we look forward to hearing back from you a year from now, and keep up the good work between then, and hopefully we have a much different story to hear next year.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks, Tim.
So we'll now move on to our next item of business, which is the annual report on our golf course. Darren, would you like to introduce your speaker?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, Lam Do is the Superintendent of Open Space Parks and Golf. And thank you so much, Lam, for being here and sharing information about the update on the golf course.
Yes, thank you, Darren, for the introduction. Good evening, Chair Greenfield and members of the commission. Thank you for this opportunity to once again, another opportunity to speak with you and share the golf course's performance. So let me share my screen with you to switch over to the presentation, and then we will begin here. Okay, and I believe my screen should be showing with the cover page of the performance, golf performance. Yes, thank you. So to begin with, this brief presentation is intended to supplement the staff report, not replace the staff report. And it is kept brief in anticipation of a more extensive Q&A session with the commission. So, and with that, I'll begin. And with a little bit of background on how our golf course became to be and what led up to our course redesign. So in looking back at some historical information, our original municipal golf course was actually petitioned by the community going back to 1939. When the initial thought of having a golf course operated by the city was planted. And then sometime in the 1940s, a Palo Alto General Recreation Advisory Board proposed to what I believe are your predecessors, the Palo Alto Recreation Commission at the time, that of course we built in the Baylands. And then from there, it took some time, some various locations in the Baylands were considered, some land surveys had to be done. An initial site was deemed not suitable, and eventually the current location was determined to be the appropriate location to build a course. And then from there, a course was built and eventually opened up in May of 1956. The course that was built in 1956, the course layout remained fairly the same. And there were some minor upgrades and minor changes over the years. Some of them had to do with irrigation in the late 90s as well. And then ultimately there was deterioration of the course, deterioration of the turf. The irrigation system had aged out, and other improvements needed to be done. So the city decided to consider a full course redesign. And this coincided with a need of the adjacent San Francisco Creek JAPA, which wanted to expand flood control, which meant that as the creek's girth expanded, it would expand into the footprint of the existing golf course. So that also triggered a need to redesign the golf course. So at the time in 2012, the city engaged with a golf course architect, Forrest Richardson and Associates at the time, to provide several course designs. And what culminated in 2013 was the selection of a link style course. A link style course being one that is not flat, has contours, has elevation, has more rough areas. And the term link style course originated in Europe, where courses there tend to be based on, built around pre-existing contours of land. In our case, we artificially created a link style course. Between 2013 and 2016, while the city was securing environmental permits to build the course, we were also importing soil and stockpiling soil so that we could create a contoured course with elevation and with sort of some rolling hills and such. After we secured enough soil to build the course and also secured all of our environmental permits, in 2016, we closed the course for construction. And then from there, we were able to open the course in May of 2018. A change when we reopened the course from how we previously operated was the city went out to seek a single operator to provide all elements of service, from managing course play to managing the practice facilities, to maintaining the course itself, to handling merchandise sales on behalf of the city, and to also provide food and beverage service. Previous to that, the city for over 30 years or so had operated with multiple operators managing different perspectives. And for a while, the city was also maintaining the course itself until we sought a maintenance contractor. So that was one of the big changes, not just that we debuted a new course, a new style, but we also went with a single operator model, which I believe has provided a much richer golfer experience, more cohesive experience as well. And maintenance of the course is essential to how the course plays. And because it's the same company managing the course, that's also managing course play, managing customers, that's also the same company that's maintaining the course. I think there's cohesiveness there that benefits us all. Since the course opened, I think, a lot of people, when they think of how is a golf course performing, the thoughts of what are the revenues, what are the expenses, and what are the golf rounds. However, that's just part of the story. There's also customer satisfaction involved, but I think it's hard to overlook what are the key indicators that people look for. So when you look at our first fiscal year operating in 2019, we came close, but we did not achieve our targeted revenue. We had revenue 3.4 million, when our expenses were about 3.7 million. This was our first year of operating under the new course. We did not know fully what to anticipate other than what we had based on performers in which we had hired the National Golf Foundation to provide us with some estimates. We had also worked with a golf consultant to take a second look at the National Golf Foundation's performers, and I think they were both in concurrence. However, we did not reach our target. We were a little bit about 6 or 9%, I forget the exact figure, I apologize, under our expected revenue line. We then moved into our second full year of operating, which ended in fiscal year 20. And you can see there's a much lower revenue number of 2.8 million, where expenses were 3.5 million. That's attributed to the current pandemic that we're in, which started in earlier this year, which closed the course in March, which was the spring season. And that's essentially one of the, other than summer, the peak season for golf play. So we took a big financial hit in regards to revenue loss. And then when the course reopened per allowance by the state and the county, we weren't able to open full bore. We followed the guidelines of the state and county, and we reopened with singles play only. So that further hampered our opportunity to bring in revenue, which resulted in much fewer rounds of golf played and overall revenue, a large gap in revenue loss. Surprisingly, in the current fiscal year, which started in July, we are doing well. Both the county and the state changed the guidelines and provisions that allowed us to have foursome play. and not in foursome play, but foursome amongst different households. So that gave us an opportunity to have more rounds of golf play, book more tee times, and right now we're on pace to exceed our revenue target by year end, should everything go well. It's hard to tell. We're only 4 months or almost 5 months into the fiscal year, but we're also heading into the winter season. So since July, we've been doing well and strong. Hopefully, depending on the weather, if we don't have a strong winter rain season, then typically we do get some revenue from there, and then picks up in the spring, and hopefully we have a good spring season, which would leave us on target to hit our revenue goals. So that's kind of one part of the indicators of how the golf course is doing. The other indicators would be how customers view our course. The other indicators would be how they complain about our course as well. So from a perspective of how people, when they played the course, it's been very well received, from the conditions of the course to specifically our greens are very well appreciated, even amongst superintendents of other local courses who have played our course, all feel that we have probably one of the best greens on course in the entire region. So that's where things are positive. Where things are not so good. We have had some issues in regards to our pricing. We did go with a dynamic pricing model, so our prices fluctuates based on time of the day of the week, and also how far in advance one books their tee times. So there have been unwanted reception to the dynamic pricing, and I can talk to you more about that during the Q&A session as well. So that's these. I think that's kind of a fair way to describe, but there's two sides of it all. In regards to that, to look at the revenue expenses and rounds of golf played as well. How all this plays out, I think, is how well the golf course is received overall, I think. And when we look at that, we take a look at who's playing our course. Where are they coming from to play our course? So in last fiscal year 2020, 89% of our golfers came from our county and San Mateo counties. In particular, 27% of players were Palo Alto residents. This is an increase from our prior course. Our prior course, we hovered right around, 20% of our players were Palo Alto residents. So we've improved on that figure with our new course. And in this fiscal year, that figure is actually increased to 29% of players are Palo Alto residents. And then there's another 44% of Santa Clara County players coming from other parts of the county, not including Palo Alto. So in general, we are drawing a good number of local players. However, we do want to be not just attracting local players, we also want to attract regional players. So it's hard to tell right now with in the current pandemic whether or not people our current player percentage is increasing because we're drawing more players locally who don't want to travel, or whether there are other factors involved. But I think right now we're doing pretty well in regards to reaching our own Palo Alto players. And then to kind of wrap up and summarize where our golf course has done and what type of profile and how people rate us. And again, I think it's in regards to people who actually play the course. I think in general, much of it is positive. And going back to the service is good, from being welcomed, from the booking, from having a marshal on course to ensure pace of play is continuous. So our current operator does offer a higher level service commensurate with what we think is a better course, both from before and a better course to compare to most of the courses regionally here that are public courses. In regards to what type of recognitions the industry has given us, we received several recognitions since we've opened. Soon after we opened, we received the Renovation of the Year, placing 3rd for public courses from Golf Incorporated magazine. So that was a very prestigious award for us to receive. Every year there are numerous courses throughout the country that public courses that get renovated, but for us to place 3rd was a very nice recognition. Within the state, the California Parks and Recreation Society awarded us an award of excellence for facility design and environmental sustainability, which is one of the goals of the design, not just to have a link style design, but also the selection of the type of turf that we have, being salt tolerant to allow us to use recycled water, going towards environmental sustainability and design overall. So that was a good award to have. And then perhaps one of the best award recognitions that we received is from Golf Week magazine, which placed us 13th among golf courses open to the public in California. And this list includes several of the Monterey Bay courses. And so for us to place 13th, I think it shows all the work that we put into this has been acknowledged and has been received. And so with that, I'm concluding my brief presentation, and I'll turn it over to you. I think you're going to probably have quite a few questions for me to answer.
Thank you for the presentation and for all of your work overseeing the golf course and the operations. And again, there's certainly been challenges that we've been faced with. And so thank you for persevering. Looking for hands from commissioners who might like to speak first. David.
Moss, I believe you're on mute.
That's better. This has been a tough year under the circumstances, your second year, and actually your first year, big year. I'm a little surprised that your expenses for this year, 3.5 million, were so high considering that you were shut down for a while, and even when you came back up, it was very slow. What goes into those expenses that required it to be so high considering?
So the lion's share of the expenses is the course maintenance. And whether the course is open or the course is closed, that cost is incurred. We're not able to let the course grow and be unkept, even though we were closed. Much of it, especially the putting greens. Putting greens, if you don't attend to them 2 to 3 times and more than 2 times a day to keep the turf low, you risk disease growing, funguses growing in the turf on the putting green. In addition to that, you also risk when you cut them back that they will not be sustainable after you've let it grow so tall. So it's sort of like you have to train the grass to constantly be alive and well at a shortcut. And we're talking shortcuts of a quarter inch and less.
Yeah.
So that's a lion's share of the maintenance. The other big share is staffing. So you're right. The staffing was reduced temporarily. However, we were not able to go to fully zero staff. We still need to have staff, some staff on site as well. So that's where, unfortunately, even with the golf course closing, we could not avoid those costs.
Yeah, and with Team Sheeper, they've had to do so much to get around COVID, the 6 feet limit and things like that. I'm noticing that you're pretty much back to complete normal. Is that right? Or do people have to take special precautions still? I'm thinking of 4 people in a golf cart or things like that, or just foursomes in general.
Yeah, we are not at full normal. The biggest thing is that we are operating at less than capacity. When we reopened with 12-minute intervals between tee times. Right now we're operating at 10-minute intervals between tee times. When at other times we could operate between 7 to 8-minute intervals between tee times. So we are not at optimal capacity to start with. Secondarily, in regards to going back to normal, the tee time reservation system is solely online at this present. In regards to sharing of a golf cart, it's members of the same household. So there are a few things that in which we're not at full capacity at present. We would like to be, however, being cognizant of the current pandemic, and it being that we want to adhere to guidelines that are both from the county and the state. We're in the current state that we are, where we're less than capacity.
Okay. Then my last question is, you said that we have so many incredible awards and we have one of the best maintained courses. Do we have to have one of the best maintained courses in the state, or can we reduce expenses and be okay? I know you have to maintain your base, your fan base, but how low can we go and still do that?
Yeah, it's a difficult balance. And it goes back to, I think, when this design was selected. And the design was selected along with the dynamic pricing was selected. So Forest Richardson provided the city 5 and maybe 6, I forget. They called them different letters. They weren't numbered, but the designs were lettered. Different types of layouts and different types of course designs. And sort of this was the premium one that was selected. And so as the premium one that's selected, of course, it costs more, not just to build, but also costs more to maintain. And so we're up against a large expense that we need to recoup through revenues. Do we have to be the best course in the area? I think the intended customer profile that we're looking for is different from what other courses in the region are catering to. We're catering to both the mid-range and the high range. We have other courses regionally here in other municipalities catering to low to mid-range. So I think if we were to maintain a course to a lower standard, it's commensurate with what we'd be competing with our other local jurisdictions, which then puts us sort of in a tough spot, which is what happened with golf, right? Golf had too many golf courses at one point. They were all competing against each other, and a lot of them didn't survive. So I think we're at a threshold that we can be a player in and do well in, I think. Hopefully we can break even. I can't promise we'll break even, or maybe we'll even operate in the black instead of operating in the red. But that's how the golf industry is. It's difficult to break even and operate in the black. Most golf courses operate in the red. So I'm not sure we want to go to the point where we're now competing with our neighboring courses.
All right, I get it. All right, well, good luck, and I hope that you can make that revenue to expense ratio for next year starting July. So we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie?
Hi, thank you for this. I don't have any comments to follow up on that, so I appreciate it.
Great, thanks. And probably should have started with Jeff Lemaire, who's our golf liaison, just to see if he had anything specific in terms
Sure.
of and how to direct.
Thanks, Jeff. Lon, thanks so much for the presentation and everything you do with the golf course. It's certainly a beautiful space. In regards to the tiers and how we're doing with the rounds and the spacing of rounds, now that we've started in with the certain minutes between rounds, are we affected at all by the tier that we're in? Has there been any new guidance issued for outdoor spaces or for golf courses?
For outdoor gatherings, there has been. This is not considered an outdoor gathering. This is more of an activity where we haven't seen the type of restrictions that would impact golf in particular. At the course, however, we have ceased all types of gatherings. So we only allow online bookings. When you come and you check in, you're checking in outdoors and you're going straight to your round. We ask that if you come early to practice a few balls at the driving range, that you only arrive 15 minutes early. We also ask that upon completion of your round that you depart within 15 minutes. Several factors are in place to discourage any type of gatherings. In regards to tournaments and banquets, banquets have not been held since COVID. Tournaments initially were not held when COVID, for the first several months. Tournaments have come back in the last month or so, but they're not coming back as a shotgun tournament where there would be a gathering or where everyone would tee off at the same time. The tournaments are now done in flights, as if it were players coming individually, just like the members of the public will come for every interval of 10-minute tee times. So the tournaments are held the same too. There are no meals with the tournament at present. So same thing, no gathering. There's no award ceremony after a tournament as well. And so tournaments are held as if they are just a regular 10-minute flights as well.
Can you discuss the impact on this in terms of the use of the restaurant as well as the pro shop?
I can discuss half of it. The reason I say that is because the restaurant is operated by the same operator, but they operate based on a lease from the city. So they are struggling. I don't have details and numbers to show you, but their sources of their channels of business before this came from banquets and events that has shuttered. Their lunchtime business channel has also shuttered because all of the local business across the street do not have employees there. And then the golfers, we've discouraged golfers from staying around to enjoy a meal or to enjoy a drink. So most of their business channels have been shuttered. I don't know what the financial hit or is to them. Your other question in regards to how this has impacted the golf shop. The golf shop is operated by the same operator, OB Sports, on behalf of the city. So the city is taking the financial loss in regards to lost sales. Even before COVID, we struggled in competing with other retail channels, whether it be online or big box retailers selling golf merchandise. And then now we essentially do not have sales other than essential needs that every golfer needs when they arrive. We can still sell some balls, we can still sell some gloves, but most of shoes, clothes, golf club sales, those pretty much are non-existent at present.
And can you discuss, looks like the golf course lost $1 million the last 2 years. Does the city incur all of those losses? And then if you can talk about if there is revenue that's a profit, how much of that does the city get versus OB Sports?
Yes. When the golf course operates in the red, the city takes the loss. The course is a general fund program. And, I think the $1 million you referred to, the bulk of that, 700,000 of that, it was in last fiscal year. And that was revenue loss from March through June. And that's part of the citywide revenue loss due to COVID pandemic. When the golf course does operate in the black, our agreement with the operator is a revenue share, and the revenue share is a little bit complicated. They would need to reach a certain threshold in regards to them receiving a revenue share. If they don't reach a threshold above the target, there is no revenue share.
So in the case of if there was $300,000 in revenue in profit this next year, how much would the city potentially get of that?
Let me talk in sort of round numbers instead of exact numbers. There is a certain threshold above the target number that which the city would set aside for future use, and then once anything above that threshold is a 20-80 share between city and the operator, where the city would receive the 20% and the operator would receive the 80%. It's a sort of an incentive program for the operator to over exceed.
And then last, can you please discuss the status of the contract with OB Sports currently and going forward?
Yes. Our contract with OB Sports is for them to provide a full service. So going back to course play, course practice facilities, course maintenance, merchandise sales, and also for them to provide food and beverage. And going back to the food and beverage service is the same operator, but they lease the restaurant facility from the city. All other services that they provide is through a management contract with the city. We established with them a 3-year contract, of which we are in the 3rd year of the contract. Fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20 being the first 2 years, and now fiscal year 21 being the 3rd year. There are mutual renewals established in the contract, which upon both parties mutually agreeing to renew, the contract would be renewed for an additional 3 years, for a total of 6. And then at the end of the 6th year, should both parties also want to mutually renew, there's an option for a second renewal with another 3 years. So in total, the contract could have a lifespan of 9 years.
Thank you for your time, Lom.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rechtel.
Thank you very much. You'd mentioned in your presentation about dynamic pricing. Can you talk more about that? How's that been working in COVID land? And have our prices been going down? In the past, we've been able to squeeze out revenue. But if you have good demand, you can squeeze out revenue. If you don't have demand, you may not be able to squeeze that revenue out. So you can talk about that.
I can. What we feared did not happen, and actually the opposite happened. So let me speak to dynamic pricing in general. I think the hotel business, sports ticketing, sports attendance ticketing has also gone to similar models where the pricing, and same with airlines, where the pricing fluctuates depending on when you buy. We are one of the few courses that has adopted dynamic pricing. And the reason why when we opened this course and we adopted dynamic pricing was a lot of the struggles that the golf course industry had resulted from a boom in the business. Some people call that the Tiger Woods effect, where as golf gained popularity, so did construction of golf courses, to the point where there were too many golf courses throughout the country competing for a number of golfers, and which resulted in players shopping around for the best golf prices, or players waiting until the last minute to book a tee time because they knew that golf courses were competing against each other and was willing to discount at the last few days in advance or even the day of. So a lot of players would wait till the last moment to book to get a rock bottom rate. So in essence, golfers had sort of trained themselves to do that. The intent of our course is to change that paradigm, change that dynamic, for people to understand that no, this that shouldn't be how it is. That would industry-wide, that's going to bring the industry even further down. And we as a golf course did not want to be operating in a competition model of who's going to be the lowest green fee. So we adopted a dynamic pricing. And sorry for the long answer to your question, how has COVID affected and have we been able to squeeze more bang for the buck, or the opposite, to squeeze as much as we can out of the golf course? We had feared that golf play would be diminished due to COVID, but we've experienced the opposite. During the closure, we took going back to looking at the numbers, we took a $700,000 loss. And that was during March, April, and May of the last fiscal year, and even in June, because in June we reopened, but we reopened for singles play only. So essentially, that really limited our revenue stream. Once the COVID guidelines from the state and the county were relaxed to allow us to have foursome play amongst across households, golf demand for the golf course was there. And so we've been able to essentially almost sell out every day. As the weather has gotten colder, we're not selling every day anymore. But during the July, August, September months, we were pretty much, I'd say 90 to 95% booked, if not 100% booked. Which based on the dynamic pricing model also allowed for a good revenue stream. But that's also, I think I mentioned earlier, that's also led to some complaints about our golf course and its pricing being high. I would say it's higher than what I think we would have typically thought it could be. But even at the highest point, we're not drawing players that are paying that highest price point. Our golf course has a sort of a rack rate. We then have a regional discounted rate. We then have a resident discount rate, and then we also have a membership rate. And as you can see earlier, 80-something% of our players are local players. So very few people are actually paying the highest rate that we can get out of dynamic pricing. Most players are paying the discounted rates.
But still, if I look at like on Saturday mornings, we're still selling out the prime tee times. So even with dynamic pricing, raising the prices on those high demand tee times, those high demand tee times are still going first.
You are correct. You're correct. And the player demand is there, which is a surprise. We anticipate that perhaps the impact of the economy, loss of jobs, or reduced leisure income, but with a resounding affinity to golf, I guess I would say, people have come and played.
But to talk to David's point about, do we have to be the best course? This was an intentional decision when we remodeled this. And, you know, we have Moffitt's open up now, and Moffitt is really cheap and Shoreline is cheap, and they're a totally different experience. And so for a lot of people, paying an extra $30 and going to one of the best public courses on the West Coast is a deal. So it really depends on how much disposable income you have and how much you care about golf. And so the people I know who play Palo Alto just love it. They think it is the best. You know, you have Half Moon Bay, which is pretty good, but in the Bay Area, this side of Skyline, it's probably the best public course. So,
Yes.
And you know, it's there. We built it already, so we've kind of made our bed and we have to sleep in it.
Right.
But I think
the decision that you know, collectively the city, the council made. And right, so we invested in it. We need to recoup our investment. Building the golf course was a financial hit. We have a 30-year payment schedule to pay back the cost to build the course. And so I think going back to you hit it up exactly and rephrase it how I was phrasing it earlier. We, you know, what we chose to be, we could not go to a lower level, which would place us in competition with the other local courses, which we would not survive.
And I don't know if we knew that Moffitt was going to open up when we made this decision, but when we remodeled, Moffitt was not open to the public. And the fact that it's open now and it's charging $30 around, that would have been really hard to compete against. So I think we were lucky that we went a higher scale. But yeah, very good. The challenging times, I think we're doing as best as we can, but keep the faith. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a really good report in challenging times. And just say, you know, congratulations to everybody, you know, who's doing the work and that kind of thing. I was interested in on one of the slides, it's 29% of the people who play are Palo Alto residents. Did I read that right, or 27?
You read that correct. 29%. And that's this current fiscal year to date. Last fiscal year, we ended at 27% Palo Alto residents.
So it seemed a little bit low to me. Like, don't we have any more people in Palo Alto that play golf than that? So maybe, and then I was wondering about exactly if you could talk a little bit about the kind of marketing that our vendor is doing and the city's doing, because what I'm hearing kind of from the golf officials that I work with and people who are pretty in the know about golf is exactly what Keith is just saying about this is a great golf course, and it's kind of has been a secret, but now that people are coming to play on it, they're really, really loving it, and the word is out on the street that it's a really great place to play. So if you could talk a little bit about marketing, and then talk a little bit about, is it COVID that's pushing the fact that we are have so many from just Santa Clara and San Mateo County where people are just not driving and not traveling, or is it going to continue like that? And then I guess the last question is, do we have any figures back when we were doing 110 rounds at the old Palo Alto Muni in the 80s about what the percentage was from people in Palo Alto, or were they traveling people?
Going back to the late 80s, early 90s, and even the late 90s, the information that we received during that time was the same golf course management.
Of course.
Current one. It was a different management company for us. It was Brad Lazarus who we contracted with. And Brad did not have the exact numbers for us. And you know, part of that is also on us. I don't think we tracked it to that depth at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, Brad let us know that we hovered about 20% golfers were Palo Altans. It was hard for us to get more Palo Altans to play our course. But we also have to recognize that our course that had deteriorated at that point.
Yes.
That it's hard to draw you know, your local crowd when your product has deteriorated. So going from the 20% to the 20% now, I think is an improvement. Is it COVID related? I can say, you know, last fiscal year 27% before COVID. So the improvement is not as COVID related, but at present, the peaking at 29%. I suspect there's some of that is COVID, because even the numbers in Santa Clara County went up. So it's not just local Palo residents playing, but it's also in the county, more county residents are playing. So it could be that people don't want to travel out of the region as much to play golf. And they may travel out of the region for other needs, family needs, travel needs, business needs, something like that. But to play golf, perhaps they don't want to travel out of the region. Your other question was, is it sustainable, how we're performing, and what are we doing in the marketing? I would venture to say that after COVID, that perhaps our Palo resident numbers and our county numbers will decline, but it'll be replaced with San Mateo players coming, San Francisco County players coming, and other across the bay players coming here to keep up the play. And it's because the word is out, absolutely. We've been recognized by national magazines as a great course of play. And amongst golfers, that's right, they invite their friends and they pull their friends to play in the foursome with them. So the numbers will fluctuate, but right now I would venture to say it is probably likely that our higher regional, our higher local play is due to people not wanting to travel.
So, Lam, is there a number that you all have in mind for 2 years or 3 years from now, what you'd like the number of rounds to be, what the course can comfortably sustain?
We do, and I apologize, I don't have those numbers off the top of my mind. You can see that our goal for this fiscal year is to hit 57,000 rounds, which is higher than our prior years. In our golf course performer, it is an acceleration of rounds every year. And the National Golf Foundation did tell us it would take us about 4 to 5 years to reach a peak. And so we're not at that point yet. We're only 2.5 years, not even 2.5 years in. And I apologize, I don't have the figure with me, but it is it's somewhere in the 60,000, 63. Please don't quote me.
I won't, I promise. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And one last question. Are the men's clubs, the golf club, and the women's clubs happy?
Well, happiness is a different definition. I would say dynamic pricing does not make them happy. Course play makes them happy.
That's fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Lon, for the presentation. I really appreciated the historical information that you presented to us. It was interesting to learn and help put things in perspective. I think it's amazing that we're on target for hitting our numbers for fiscal 2021, given the pandemic. I think overall expectations are very low for just about anything right now.
Yeah.
And so to be hitting the target numbers, that's great. Based on some of the previous discussion in terms of the booking rates that you're hitting, I think what we have working in our favor is the lack of options for recreation, and as particularly outdoor recreation opportunities are going to be much more popular right now since indoor isn't an option. So that's certainly must be working in our favor.
Yes, I want to knock on wood that we sustain this pace. I know that unfortunately they're right. There will be. It's also fortunate that our community will have other options soon in the future, I hope. But there's a lot more going on, I think, than just what we're looking at. I can say that the golf course is on target, and I hope it stays that target. But there are other factors that could easily make a change and go either way, where we could accelerate and do so well, or we could not accelerate so well. Unfortunately, in the past 2 years, we've also had a wildfire season that in fact impacted air quality, which has a direct impact on golf course play as well. So I think there are many factors that can impact this, but we're all crossing our fingers. I'm gonna knock on wood that we can sustain this.
Sure. Thanks for helping set expectations, but we'll take good news when we hear it.
Yes.
A question I have is, how does our partner agreement for the golf course differ or compare with the aquatics contract? And part of my question is based on, I know for the aquatics discussions we've had, Tim Sheeper has always been involved and has been a part of the reports and the presentations and discussions. And I'm wondering, is there something fundamentally different to, whereas we don't have anybody from the golf course operator involved in these presentations and reports?
I think maybe one fundamental difference is, from what I understand, and keep in mind, I'm not, I don't oversee nor am I involved in the aquatics contract, but from what I've seen is that it's a requirement in the aquatics contract that the operator present their figures. We do not have that requirement in our contract. Certainly, I think if I were to ask them to be a part of these presentations, they would be willing. I don't, so I think, is that what you're asking? Am I asking, reaching your point?
That's very helpful to understand that it is required in the aquatics contract. That makes sense. And I'm not saying that we're not getting the information we need from you. I'm just considering the contrast between the two and trying to understand what the difference is. That makes sense. Thanks. As far as changes required because of COVID and the reopening of the course, what are the rules for people what are the rules for people out on the golf course? How are these communicated and how are these enforced?
So we have several changes in course play. Several things that we changed. Initially, we opened without any cart rentals, and that, once again, that was per state and county guidelines. When we allowed cart rentals, we initially allowed them as singles only, and then we allowed them to be same household. On the course, the biggest COVID precaution is putting. When one putts, you're putting towards the hole, but your ball is not falling into the hole. We've put sort of a lip on the whole course, on the putting green holes, so that your ball reaches the lip and then it bounces back, and that's considered a made putt. This is so that players are not reaching into the hole one after the other to retrieve their putts. On the course, we also have a course marshal for two purposes. Generally, the course marshal is to ensure pace of play, but now the course marshal is also to ensure that people social distance, and that sometimes when we have a short hole followed by a long hole, or two short holes following each other, players may have to wait on the course for the group ahead to be far enough where they would not be hit by a golf ball being teed off. And so the marshal is also on course to remind people to distance while they're waiting.
Masks are required for everyone?
Masks are not required. And this once again is per state and county and the city's mask ordinance, which when you are participating in an activity, you are not required to wear a mask. And one other precaution that I forgot to mention previously was that the golf balls in the driving range are sanitized before they are distributed. And we sanitize them through a ball wash machine, a ball wash process.
So masks are not required even if there's people that aren't from the same household that are playing within the same group?
That's correct. They're in the same foursome, but they're not in the same cart, and they're not teeing off together. They're teeing off one after the other. So the social distance perspective, different from what I think we heard a lot in the aquatics presentation. is not a challenge. And aquatics, I can totally see why being in a lane, it's difficult to have more participants swim. But at the golf course, it's wide open enough. Even while you're waiting for a tee, you probably have at least your foursome, and each tee, I'm going to say, area has at least 500 to 800 square feet of space to social distance for 4 people.
So everyone has to stay at least 6 feet apart, but they don't have to have a mask on.
Unless you're in the same household.
Right. Thanks. You mentioned the driving range, and I was going to ask about that. Could you explain how the operations have changed there? I think maybe every other stall is now open.
That's correct. So we have reduced the number of stalls available to play. This is to create more distance between those that are practicing golf. In addition to that, we have shut down our ball machine sales machine. Excuse me. Our ball machine vending machine is probably a better way to put it. And now, in order to, so that way no one's distributing tokens, no one's retrieving tokens. Now you are, when you arrive to practice, you are distributed a basket of balls that has been sanitized. You hand it in a basket, it's all done outdoors, there's no indoor sales. And from there you go to your practice area. We do have a time limit on how long you can practice as well. It has resulted with fewer hitting stalls and some people having to wait until a stall becomes available. I'm trying to think what other measures are in place for social distancing. I think that's about it.
Thank you. I haven't heard anything about youth programming and use by high schools or youth clubs. What is the status of youth programming?
The status of youth program. Our high schools are using the golf course on a regular basis. We also continue to have golf programming through the First Tee of Silicon Valley at the course. And we also, this past summer, had a few summer camps that were offered as well. So even as we reopened with COVID, we still continue to have our youth programming. One thing that we did not continue to have, we suspended temporarily and have reinstituted now, is the Youth on Course program. The Youth on Course program is separate from a sort of a teaching program. It's a program that allows you to go on course and play. And that program we suspended for temporarily, and we brought that back earlier this month.
Thank you. I would appreciate seeing more year-to-year comparison data. I'm going to encourage you to start accumulating this data to present a year from now. It's good to see the revenue, expense, and rounds data coming up, but I'm not. I'd be interested in seeing the percentage of open tee times, so our booking percentage, average booking fees, youth camp participation, and perhaps other youth data as applicable. I think this would be very helpful for us to see on a year-to-year basis, so that we can chart our progress, and there may be other applicable similar data that you could include.
Okay. Thank you.
Otherwise, thank you very much for the presentation and all of your efforts in managing this gym for our community.
Yes, and thank you for this opportunity. When Darren asked me if I could present to you the commission, I said yes, absolutely. I mean, I've had this opportunity, and once again, I'm glad to do this.
Thank you. Councilmember Koo, do you have any comments?
No, but thank you for the presentation, ma'am.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
And any follow-up comments from other commissioners? Very good.
If I could just say in closing, thank you for the appreciation of my work, but I also want to share that my work is also the work of other colleagues as well, in our division of parks and open space. Every now and then we rely on each other for help here and there. I do rely on the park staff occasionally for irrigation support. I do rely on the open space staff for monitoring. So it's a collective effort. And so I would also, if I could extend a thank you to my colleagues as well.
Absolutely, well noted. You are the face of the program, but there are many people involved. It takes a village.
All right, with that, I'll conclude.
Thank you, Lom.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the next item, which is the Commission ad hoc and liaison updates. There has been a report submitted, probably most enthusiastically and consistently by Commissioner Moss. Thank you. There's probably other information that isn't getting submitted. So does anyone have any questions or information you'd like to share? This is an opportunity to add in what may not be in our monthly report here.
Jeff, it's Anne. I have lost all the pictures, so I hope you can hear me, but I can't see you anymore. I'd like to add something to our fundraising report or fund development report, if I might.
Yes, please. And we can see you and you look great, Anne.
Oh, I appreciate that, but I'm just looking at the launch Zoom meeting, so it'll come back probably in a little while. So I just wanted to mention that we talked to everybody last time, I believe, and did a fund development report, kind of talking about identifying small, medium, and large projects that might be good projects to be looked at in terms of possible funding, and to see also which ones were in alignment with the master plan. And so one of the ones that we've been working on is the gym, because as everybody knows, the city of Palo Alto doesn't have their own gym. And so right now we're just doing some research and collecting information on three things. First of all, possible locations. Second of all, the footprint, the acreage, and the square footage. And the third thing, actually, the acreage of the square footage, and also what that gym might look like, because there are a lot of variations on the kinds of gyms that reflect the needs of the community. And the third thing is what the price tag would be on each one of those gyms. And so it's pretty exciting to think about all of this and have a vision of having our own gym for Palo Alto. And I'm pretty excited to look at the way the Junior Museum did their great work by creating a vision at the beginning and capturing the imagination of the community. So I just want to mention that about the gym project in particular.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And did you want to say anything about the discussions you've had with
oh, there you are.
the Palo Alto Recreation Foundation?
Yes, we had since our last report, and that is in the November update. We had a great meeting with the Recreation Foundation. I was invited to come and talk with them about the projects that they want to fund, their process for funding, how they work with the city. They're very excited that Adam Howard is now going to be their new staff liaison. And so they're anxious to hear sort of what our thoughts are for the future. And I will look forward to attending some more of their meetings. I also had a good meeting with Friends of the Park, and they too are excited about the opportunity to help the city. They did talk about the dog contributions for potential dog parks or amenities for dog parks. And so And then, as we said, we had Darren put together a great meeting with the staff of Recreation and Parks to help us understand their role in future fundraising to help community services.
Thank you. And I understand that you impressed the Recreation Foundation so much they'd like you to attend the monthly meeting. And given that, I think it would be appropriate for us to officially give you a liaison role from the commission to the Palo Alto Recreation Foundation. So unless any commissioners have a reason not to move forward with that, we'll move forward with you being our liaison. Can't think of a better person for it.
Thank you, Jeff.
I think that'd be a very good idea.
Great. We'll consider. We'll add that. We'll add you to the list there. And Catherine, if you can please add that to the liaisons listing, and we look forward to more good reports from you on that. And thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I have one about the magical bridge and one about the off-leash dog presentation, dog area in Ramos Park. Just wanted to mention that staff has done a tremendous amount of work to try to bring the Magical Bridge Playground into compliance with county rules and regulations about opening a playground. This is no small feat, and they had not very much time to do it in. And they did officially open up last week. I've been over there 3 or 4 times, and it's getting popular, and the issues are real, and staff, they have 2 staff members there all the time that they're open during the week, and then they have security consultants there on the weekend, and I understand that they're moving forward with with some volunteers, but it's a tremendous effort. So I want to thank staff for doing that, and I just want to make sure that everybody knows that how much work is going into that.
Yeah, thank you. Darren did touch on that certainly in his department report.
Yeah, but it
We
just
appreciate
touched the surface.
We appreciate the effort here. It's a challenge.
Yeah. And then the second thing is that we've been talking about the Ramos Park renovation, but it seems that one of the biggest remaining issues that staff has spent a lot of time on is the concept of an off-leash dog area instead of an official dog park. And I just wanted to thank staff for all the effort that they're, specifically Peter Jensen, all the work that they've had to do. I am personally dubious about how well it's going to do, but we're going to watch and see how this goes and see what happens. So anyway, it's a lot of work. So that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have a quick update regarding the Coverly lights as a few days on. The temporary lights that Palo Alto Soccer Club has up. They seem to be happily working with just the 4 lighting units, which is good. So there's none on the sidelines. It's good for everyone. It's less expensive for the club and less encumbering for the community. And they have got the units taped off and coned off properly, which wasn't initially done. I also have a question. I don't know if the Rec Opportunities ad hoc has done anything or has had further communication with the skate park folks, and just wanted to know if there was any update on that anyone had to share.
I do not have an update in regards to that, but I will reach out to Sam again next week.
Okay.
Sam Kaplinski, who's the young man who spoke with us a few meetings ago.
thanks, Jeff. And there's an opportunity for anyone else to ask if there's updates on any of the projects and liaison roles that you may be curious about. Okay. Councilmember Koo, do you have anything you'd like to add? Thank you for joining us, as always. Okay, let's move on then to discuss our tentative agenda for the final meeting of the year, December 15th, an early meeting based on the holiday season coming up. Darren?
Thank you, Chair. Three, I think, likely candidates, although I'm going to put tentative in there just because there are a few, as always, outliers that need approval from other departments, and sometimes those take time. So the Ramos Park Improvement Ordinance we could bring to commission, the dog off leash area as a discussion. This would be before the public outreach meeting that we do for the community, and we had sort of switched positions on this. The ad hoc had discussed which should come first, and after more discussion, we settled on bringing it to the commission first. And then lastly, potential Foothills Park name change. I hope to have that on the agenda on that December 15th.
Great. Does anyone else have any requests or suggestions for either for this coming month or to work into the queue for future meetings?
I think the Magical Bridge, there should be an update from staff in the next couple months, you know, somewhere around January, just to see how we're doing, or just an update. I don't want to wait 6 months.
And so I think you're asking for an update as opposed to an agendized presentation on Magical Bridge. Is that correct?
Right.
I suspect we'll be getting a monthly update for a while. One question I have that I didn't mention didn't bring up in the previous golf item is, given that the annual contract is expiring at the end of the fiscal year, is there a role that the Parks and Rec Commission will play in reviewing whether or not we decide to opt to renew?
Not necessarily, although we could certainly consult the liaison and discuss it a little bit more with Commissioner Lemaire and see if there are any elements that sort of bear a discussion like that. But typically it's sort of an operations point of view, and staff moves forward on that. But I'm certainly open to further questions and comments on that.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, since we're talking about golf again, at the last session, we talked about the first tee and a possible timeline or understanding on the commission's part about what had to be done to make the first tee move forward in terms of an MOU, other departments in the city, checkoff times, and all of that, so that we could understand kind of the timeline. Is that possible in your staff report? I don't think it has a big agenda item, but just to learn more about that.
Yeah, probably not this coming staff report, but soon. We're working over a hurdle on city contribution to this project and how to manage that, which is sort of an antecedent to moving on to those other elements. So we're going to keep working on that piece and see if we can find a way to make that work and then move on. And as soon as I have that, I'm glad to incorporate that into a department report.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Last time we talked about getting John Aiken back in about the Baylands Trail. So just if you can schedule that in.
Will do.
And it's been some time since we discussed the idea, but I think there was a goal at some point to get an overview of all the trails in Palo Alto open spaces.
That's like a New Year's resolution, isn't it?
I suppose. And I guess we'd have to say that it's going to be one of the more popular checkbox items on New Year's resolutions, at least for the first half of the new year.
Yeah.
Given the limited access at gyms. Okay, let's move on to comments and announcements. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share?
Only happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you. I realize that this would be the more appropriate time to make those wishes known, but I decided to speak earlier while we had our participants on the meeting.
No, that was very nice that you did that. That was fair. That was very well done.
Thank you.
I have one comment. We had the joint meeting with North Ventura, and today North Ventura did send out a notice saying that one of the property owners is looking to redevelop soon. So that kind of pushes up the timeline for reevaluating the parks in that neighborhood.
And which property owner was that? Do you know?
They're looking at redeveloping part of the Fry's parcel. It'd be the part of the parcel that's near Park. And they just gave us some big picture ideas what's going on. More details will follow, but it will be right along.
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, is this near where they wanted to widen the creek, or is this a potential gym site?
Yeah, this would be, they're going to go from the creek, starting at the creek and going north from there. So this would be right up against the creek, which would reduce some of our options if we wanted to widen it.
Yeah.
But the most practical way of widening it would just be using the existing right of way and not adding any extra parkland. There's still some naturalization you can do without having to require additional land. But if we really do want that additional land, then we have to get into the planning process too.
So Darren, like we did with the AT&T property, can we put a bug in the ear of real estate and legal and try to get ahead of that?
I can certainly try.
Yeah.
I think just a bug would be good. Let's see where it goes, because it doesn't happen very often.
No.
The other thing to realize that this is going to be, there's a new housing law that was passed last year, SB 330, which really compresses the timelines. So this won't be as leisurely as a normal planning session. All the timelines will be compressed. So if we do want the park, or if we want land for the creek, we have to decide very quickly and get it into the queue before, or otherwise you snooze, you lose.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Well, it ain't going to be cheap.
This is information that's obviously going to need to go to council to get further. It's a difficult time and a unique opportunity, and it's something to consider. Thank you. Any other comments before I request a motion to adjourn? Do I have a motion?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Good night.
Good night.
Everyone, thank you.
Good night.
Aye.
Bye.